So, welcome in to this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of Minor League Baseball. It is the middle of June. Ordinarily, we'd be coming up on, all-star games and first half titles and all that kind of stuff, and we are. And that's, I don't know why I said ordinarily, because that's the case in the world. Not all-star games necessarily, but we're winding down the first half of the minor league baseball season. And I think I'm just refusing to admit in my head that it is nearly the official end of spring and start of summer. Because I always want this time of year to go 10 times slower than every other time of year. But this is the official podcast of Minor League Baseball. My name is Tyler Maun, Sam Dykstra, and Benjamin Hill in New York City. Fellas, we got so much to get to today. How are you?
Good. Yeah, it's funny you point out about there being first half titles now. Like the official first half is back. I mean, that's a thing that's returned to minor league baseball this year. The idea title determining playoff spaces. So like even today, Oklahoma City tweeted that they can clinch the Pacific Coast League first half title with a win today on Wednesday. So I'm guessing if they're that close, by the time you guys hear this on Friday, they probably will have clinched. Oklahoma City has been certainly loaded this year, but it's funny that this is happening now. And like you said, Tyler, we haven't even officially gotten to summer yet. We're talking about first half of the season being done, and we're not even officially yet.
Clinching titles, and we're still officially in the season of spring. And we are very excited for this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. We are going to dive in one of our themed episodes. We're going to talk with some minor league broadcasters. We're going to hear from a wide slew of minor league broadcasters on some of their favorite moments, favorite calls, all that type of stuff. And one of the guys who has met probably more of them than any of us is Benjamin Hill, who is yet again gearing up for a road trip that we're going to talk about. But Ben, what's been going on with you? I feel like we should check in on Ben the person, not just Ben's biz.
Yeah, hey, I appreciate that. Speaking of broadcasters, I have a hard time believing I've met as many broadcasters as Tyler Maun, a professional.
I feel like you've probably met so many more than me. Plus, everybody seeks you out, which is cool. I remember when you came to Myrtle Beach when I worked there in 2011, I was like, Ben Hill is going to be here. Do I ask for his autograph? This is awesome. With me, it's like nobody cares. But you draw the crowd.
Yeah, I draw a crowd. I mean, upwards of 2 and 3 people at a time are interested in the fact that traveling minor league baseball writer Ben Hill's at the ballpark. So I'm going on this trip. We're talking here on Wednesday, recording a little early. This is my last day before leaving, and as I was telling you guys off air, I always get really stressed and anxious before a trip, and a little bit sleep deprived right now. So, I don't feel great today. I just feel kind of like, just all edgy and all the little to-do lists before you leave, and I did this job, and most of my ballpark visits through the years, I was usually single, and it's a different dynamic now, and having a family and a kid, and leaving that, and all the responsibilities that I have to do day to day that I didn't have before, and then trying to get trips done on top of it. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying these are kind of like some of the lowest times for me right before a trip, because it's all that edginess of waiting to see what happens and making sure I didn't forget anything, and feeling like no one's responding to my reach outs about X, Y, and Z. No one even likes me anymore. You know how you get in your head. But then usually I go on the road, usually, not always, and I'm like, this is awesome. What were you worried about? You've done this a lot. As Tyler said, people love you. You're a celebrity. You're signing autographs. Sometimes that's the case, sometimes not. But usually it's just like anything in life. It's a lot easier to do things than it is to think about doing them. So I'm always glad to get past the thinking about doing it stage, pretty much no matter what it is.
Here, Ben, I'll give you a little bit of an ego boost. What's the strangest autograph request you've ever had?
Strangest. Well, one. It wasn't so much me per se, but when I think of a strange autograph, my earlier days of road trips, I was really participatory. I would just tell the teams like, hey, any aspect of your operation, I'll do it. So I ended up in a lot of between inning games and, silly stunts and just running all over the ballpark in those early days. And there was one time, this is an Inland Empire in 2011, the Inland Empire 66ers. They had a tooth race sponsored by a local dentist. There was just like 3 teeth racing. So I dressed up as one of the teeth. I was Tooth. And kids at games, they just want autographs from just about anybody who seems important or weird or just stands out a little bit. But I was standing there on the berm waiting for this between inning race to begin, dressed as a Tooth, and kids kept coming up to me, not because I was Ben Hill, but because I was dressed as a Tooth and asking for autographs. And I have this costume on, it's all awkward, and I just in like block letters wrote Tooth. And it was just like, all right, I'm a Tooth and I'm signing autographs from Tooth. It was that's I've thought of in terms of people who want my autograph. I can't think of anything too like really interesting or strange, but I did do one of the cool things with my career for sure was doing those Topps cards a couple of years, was that 16, 17, 18. So it's not uncommon, for collectors who are often trying to get, player autographs to see me, and they have Ben's Biz cards and signing those. And that is always a little surreal, like, pausing to sign out of this, collector's book that also features all these players. And I'm like, yeah, I'll sign one of me where I'm, shirtless on Frisco's lazy river, and hey, let's go for it.
We have so much to get to on this week's episode of the show before the show. We have no more time to waste, but that's one of my favorite things is wasting time with you dudes. I have to ask you about this tooth race. Were they different types of teeth? Was there like a molar and a canine and an incisor? Or was it like all just 3 generic teeth?
That's what I was trying to think when I was telling the anecdote. I wanted to say that I was like molar or I was a bicuspid, but I really cannot recall if they were differentiated. It's written, it's documented in some blog post deep in the Ben's Biz blog archives. So I will look into that and see if I can come up with anything else.
That is fantastic. All right, Ben, well, let's dive into some of the good stuff that is up on the site right now, some of the stuff that is coming, your next trip, all of that. And we're going to kick it off. Your Northwest League trip a couple of weeks ago. You met an eccentric fellow in Hillsboro, Oregon, which, if there is anybody who is acquainted with the eccentric characters of minor league baseball more than Ben Hill, I want to know who it is. But we need to hear this Hillsboro Hippidy Hops story.
Yeah, this is how I roll. Just about to embark on one trip, but I still writing about the previous one because there's all sorts of little odds and ends to cover. When I was in Hillsboro, I met a man named Christian Trout who does not go by Christian Trout at the ballpark. He is the Hippidy Hops Guy, and he is the biggest fan at the ballpark in terms of just sheer presence. And those are the kind of people I like to write about. But the Hippidy Hops Guy, there's several unique things about him. But one of his main things, he sits in Section 5 at Ron Tonkin Field in Hillsboro, right near the home dugout, right behind the home dugout, actually. And so he's one of those fans who kind of leads an informal group in all sorts of, in-game rituals and cheers. And he has dugout shrines and voodoo dolls of the opposing team. But one of his main things is a rubber chicken. And he has a rubber chicken with a bow tie with him at every game. And he's always squeezing, and you can, it's not an instrument, but you can squeeze a rubber chicken in different ways. Sometimes real quick and fast, because you're excited, sometimes more slow and let the air out. It's mournful. There's more emotion in a rubber chicken than you might think. So this guy always has a rubber chicken.
Can that be the title of this episode, please? Even though this is our broadcaster episode, can that be the title of this episode? There's more emotion in a rubber chicken than you'd think.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. There really is. I learned a lot about rubber chickens, and he got this rubber chicken just as a gift from his sister for Christmas in 2021. He started bringing it to the games, but then he was like, it's kind of lonely when you're the only one with the rubber chicken. So he bought a bunch of miniature rubber chickens, which I assume are cheaper and easier to carry into the ballpark. So he just distributes these miniature rubber chickens every single game. And when I was talking to him at the ball game I attended last month, just throughout our conversation, it was kids. They just knew, how kids always want something for free. They had a lead that guy down there is giving away rubber chickens. So kids kept coming up and asking for rubber chickens. Some of the other fans in the section already had their rubber chickens, and just in the ballpark, not in an overwhelming way, but in a very persistent way all throughout the game. you would just hear from all throughout the ballpark these rubber chicken, skronks and squeals and bleeps, just kind of as part of the ballpark ambience. The crack of the bat, the thump of the ball hitting the glove, the PA announcer announcing batters, the low buzz of the crowd, and just rubber chickens. It's all part of that ballpark oral tableau. I never know how to say oral, AURAL, and differentiate it from oral, but our
That is a tricky one.
oral tableau. It's a very tricky one. But yeah, so I wrote an article on the Hippidy Hop Guy. It is the lead of this week's Ben's Biz Beat newsletter, and it'll be up on MILB.com on Friday as well. So if you like the eccentric characters, the super fans of minor league baseball, I think you'll enjoy that one.
All right, Ben, and real quick, we talked about your trip to the Cider Donuts going there a few weeks ago. I don't think we ever wrapped that up. So just kind of take us quickly through what it was like witnessing a Cider Donuts day.
Yeah, Cider Donuts. Sam, I heard you're a fan of the Cider Donuts.
I too have heard this. Sam.
Yes, I've spread the news far and wide that Ben got me a hat from Hudson Valley, and I probably wore it through New York City yesterday. I got some comments on social media from like friends. They're just like, "What is this hat?" So I kind of, it's funny how things enter the zeitgeist in other ways. My friends who are not as close to minor league baseball as, of course, we are, it seemed to be a real hit. So I think, based on that very limited sample size, I think they got something going up there in Hudson Valley. But what did you see, Ben?
Yeah, I hadn't been in Hudson Valley for 9 years, since 2014 somehow. So it was nice to be back up there. And the response to Cider Donuts has been pretty huge. That's a more autumn type specialty in the Hudson Valley region, but the Hudson Valley Renegades have Cider Donuts at the ballpark, literal Cider Donuts, every single game. June 3rd marked their debut playing as the Cider Donuts, but they have Cider Donuts every game. And the merchandise is selling really well. You can get it scented if you want. We've had Tyson Jeffers, the general manager, on the show before, talking about that. But it was cool to be at the ballpark that night and just really see how many people were wearing the gear, who connected to it. The team, if they can possibly get another donut machine, I think they need one, at least for the Cider Donuts games, because the line for donuts was just out of control all night long. There were post-game fireworks, and after the post-game fireworks, there were still people lined up for Cider Donuts. So they were a huge hit. And the Cider Donuts, interestingly enough, are made in-house, in truck, by the team's churros guy, Eddie Garcia, who just happened to have a donut machine as well, always trying to expand his operation. He does events all throughout the Hudson Valley. This is, I think, his first year at the ballpark with the Renegades, being there every game. So in addition to selling churros out of his truck, it's through his donut machine and the recipe he developed that the team is selling Cider Donuts. So it's not like a company in the region that is already producing Cider Donuts. It's Eddie the churros guy making those Cider Donuts. So that, I felt that was an interesting component. Hopefully they can find a way to produce more donuts at the ballpark. I mean, the lines were very long. They ran out of a Cider Donut cheeseburger and mac and cheese, I think even before the first pitch started. So I think ways to up the supply of those as well. And, there were some of those kinks, I think, to be worked out, especially with the amount of food and, how long it takes the fans to get it. That's tricky at any ballpark. And Heritage Financial Park, where the Renegades play, it's not a very old stadium and renovations are coming, but that's one of the tougher about working in older stadiums. It's about 30 years old. They don't have a dedicated, huge kitchen space. So you have a lot of carts and kiosks. And I think that's an aspect that fans can forget about. Not that you should justify, it's okay to wait in line for a long time, but operationally, it really can be on tough nights with a lot of demand on food. How you produce the food and get it to every area and keep that line moving is very difficult. We should have some concessions managers on the show at some point and kind of talk about the logistics of preparing for that kind of thing. But anyway, I wrote about Hudson Valley last. Is on the site right now. It came out about the Cider Donuts specifically, and my night with the Hudson Valley Renegades and just what was it was like to see the Cider Donuts debut, and they will be playing as the Cider Donuts 3 more times this season. And so get out there, get a hat, and you too pride and joy and aplomb.
I like it. And I'm very excited to make a trip somewhere in that general geographic vicinity to have a cider donut in the fall, because I've never had one, as I've been continuously reminded by Sam, especially, who is shaking his head furiously right now. And I don't blame him. I would like to have one.
You just haven't gone the extra mile, like
it's like
I can't believe they're not available to you in Denver.
I'm sure they probably are.
Yeah.
I probably just need to do some more digging. We have had, like, especially since the start of the pandemic, I feel like we've had just a crop of new amazing donut places pop up. But I'm getting married in 3 months. Like, I can't be stuffing my face with donuts. Not that you would know, because I look the exact same as the start of the year when I started working out and eating better, quote unquote, and none of that has helped. So maybe I'll go on a full cider donut diet until September.
Tyler, I'm going to tell you what I tell myself every Friday. One donut's not going to kill you.
I like that philosophy in life. All right, Ben, you have a new trip on the horizon. Not even on the horizon. It's like it's like here. It's a very close horizon. What's coming up?
Yeah, by the time this podcast is out into the world, I'll be on the road. June 15th, Birmingham Barons, Regions Field. I have not been to Birmingham since 2013, which is the year the Regions Field opened. So a decade later, get to go back, check that out. Got a couple, side trips planned when I'm in Birmingham. Very near the ballpark is the Negro Southern League Museum, which is a museum dedicated specifically to the Negro Southern League, of which Birmingham had a team, the Black Barons. So interested to check that out and write about that. Interested to stop by Rickwood Field, America's oldest ballpark, built in 1910, hosted the Rickwood Classic for many years, in which the Barons would return there and play at their old home. Still in great shape, still big things to come with that ballpark. So looking forward to that as well. So it'll be a very busy period in Birmingham, because I'll just be there Thursday, June 15th into Friday. And then Friday, I'll drive over to Montgomery, see the Biscuits, first time there in 8 years. Riverwalk Stadium, really interesting ballpark, incorporates an old train station. It was built on the site of a Civil War era prison. There's still train tracks in the background that or not just the background, but real close to the ballpark, that add the atmosphere. So I remember being struck by that ballpark when I was there, looking forward to going there again. Then driving down to the Florida Panhandle, Pensacola Blue Wahoos. Going to spend 2 nights in Pensacola. I haven't been there since 2012 when the ballpark first opened. It's now just called Blue Wahoo Stadium. And that Saturday night that I will be there, the 17th, it is a Copa night. And the Blue Wahoos are playing as Pok to Pok, POK-TA-POK. And that is a unique Copa identity, because it's honoring an indigenous sport, a North American, and that is considered to be the oldest ball sport, bat and ball or stick and ball sport in all of North America. So the Blue Wahoos kind of went the extra mile, found a really interesting identity, paying tribute to indigenous cultures, and bringing awareness to a game that isn't really played widely much at all anymore, but celebrating the roots of sports in our continent going that far back. So definitely we'll be writing about that. Then I'll stick around in Pensacola for June 18th, which I didn't realize when I booked this trip was Father's Day. I think, I'm a dad now, but I still don't internalize Father's Day as being like, oh, that's my day. I just think of my own dad and I'm like, oh yeah, I got to call him. But I forget that, that I'm missing my own Father's Day, but it's okay. I'll have Father's Day observed when I get home. And then Monday's an off day in minor league baseball, but I'll make my way to Biloxi and then spend Tuesday, June 20th with the Biloxi Shuckers. First time there since 2015, MGM Park. The last time I went there in 2015, the ballpark had just opened. It didn't even open at the start of that season. There were some construction delays. The team started the season on the road. So even though I saw a game there in 2015, and obviously the ballpark was operational, it was still had some things that need to be done to get it up to like full strength. So now 8 years later, looking forward to seeing what that ballpark has really become and checking that out. So, I talked about this itinerary last week, and for everyone out there, I'm doing it again because I'm doing that right now. As you are listening to this, I'm out there on the road, and it's not too late. Come see me if you're in this area. Say hello. Maybe be my designated eater. I've gotten a very tepid response to designated eaters on this.
Oh, come
particular
on,
tour.
people.
Yeah, I'm all in my own head. I'm like, no one's responding to anything right now. People have forgotten who I am. It's like, I feel like Elvis, like at the end of his life, just isolated and alone. All right, this is going way too dark. I don't feel like
Way
Elvis
dark
at the end of his life.
I do want to point out multiple things. One, just as recently, Poc to Poc is not played anywhere anymore in the way that it was in the pre-Columbian times in Mesoamerican ancient history. However, A, that's my favorite new identity in Copa this year. B, they are just discovering Poc to Poc things all across the region still to this day. And in April, they discovered a Mayan scoreboard at an archaeological site in the Yucatan Peninsula, which is pretty cool. 12.6 inches in diameter, and it weighs around 90 pounds. It's a stone inscription. It's got 2 players on it, and it's got hieroglyphics around it. That's pretty cool. So that's one thing. The second thing is, we have an investigative journalist on this podcast named Sam Dykstra, who dug up a picture of you in the tooth from like 20, what'd you say that was? 2012, 2011? And you are evidently suited up as a, quote, racing molar in Inland Empire. So it was a molar.
So there you go. But I signed the autographs tooth. I recall that. Yeah, here's the...
It's a good picture.
Yeah, I was asked for my autograph no less than 6 times, despite doing nothing more than gripping a pen in my fist and scrawling "tooth." And apparently, I won this race.
Hey, look at that!
Yeah. This whole blog post, I should go back and promote some of my old blog posts. And some of those early nights on the road were out of control. I mean, this blog post details a night in Inland Empire where I showed up at the ballpark in the mid-afternoon and watched the players burn their equipment because they weren't playing well. And it ends hours and hours later, dressed as a tooth and signing autographs in a mole race. I'm not against nights like that anymore, but yeah, I look back on those more anarchic early days, running around everywhere. I was a younger man.
Also, your tagging game was on point. The way I found this post was because you tagged it tooth race.
That is pretty good.
Yeah, but that is my blog is still on WordPress, even though we switched to Medium. So you can find it on WordPress and Medium. But when it switched to Medium, this is way too inside baseball. You could only have like 4 or 5 tags per post. So a lot of those more idiosyncratic posts, such as Tooth Race, are only on the WordPress version of the blog, but the full blog is and the final version is on Medium with more mundane posts, tags.
There's a lot of actual gold, not just in this post, but in all those posts. This is a fantastic line though. By this point, Ben's old blog post included a lot of pictures, and so there's a lot of ballpark photos, and it includes this paragraph. By this point, you may be saying to yourself, this place reminds me of Lancaster Stadium. Well, that's because they're virtually identical, designed by the same architect, built around the same time. But in Inland Empire, the builders at least remembered to include player clubhouses. This was overlooked in Lancaster, resulting in extraneous buildings in far right and far left field. I did not know that about Lancaster. RIP to the Jethawks. But that is pretty cool stuff. All right, you guys. Well, let's dive in. Ben, I want you to give us this was kind of a thought that germinated in your head, and we kicked it all off and started discussing and debating, getting broadcasters together and everything. But this is an episode that obviously I think we're all very excited for, especially because we get to hear from a lot of our friends, people that we've had on the show before, but getting to hear from some of the top voices in minor league baseball.
Yeah. Broadcasters. Who else is a top voice in minor league baseball but the broadcasters? And I can't remember if I had this idea or Sam did, but we started bantering it about just having minor league baseball broadcasters from throughout the minors share their favorite call. Tell us who they are and their favorite call and why it's their favorite call. So we thought it'd be good to give the rest of the show, or most of the rest of the show, over to highlighting some great calls throughout minor league baseball, and also as a way for people to familiarize themselves with voices that they may not have heard. And anyone who follows minor league baseball knows the deep quality of the broadcasters throughout the 120 teams, and so many voices that are essentially major league ready and just waiting for that opportunity. So it's really fun to just get to know broadcasters and root for them, to leave us behind, as it were, and make their way to the major leagues. But it'll be fun to hear these calls, and I'm sure there'll be some good ones. And I think, like a lot of the episodes we do, this is a topic I think we can return to, because I'm sure there's more calls where this came from.
Hello, loyal show before the show listeners. I'm Alex Freedman, and I'm the Director of Broadcasting and Communications for the Oklahoma City Dodgers. I've been with the team at OKC since 2012, and my first season calling games in the minors was back in 2007 with the High Desert Mavericks, a bygone team of yesteryear. I'd like to thank Sam and Tyler for asking me to participate in this episode, as there are so many talented and knowledgeable broadcasters in the game today. The call I've chosen to highlight occurred just last year in a game between the OKC Dodgers and El Paso Chihuahuas at Chickasaw Bricktown Ballpark. In the bottom of the ninth inning, James Outman hit a walk-off home run to not only win the game, but also complete the cycle. Outman went 5 for 5 in the game with 2 triples in addition to a single, double, and home run. It was an intense game in late August between the top 2 teams in the division, so the game had a lot riding on it. It was a back-and-forth affair. El Paso scored 2 runs in the top of the 8th inning to take the lead at 4-3. Jason Martin led off the bottom of the inning for OKC and appeared to hit a game-tying home run, but it was taken off the board due to a clock violation on the pitcher. Since it was a full count, it went from a home run to a walk instead. With the home crowd in a frenzy over what they just saw, Outman was up next and hit his second triple of the game to even the score. The Dodgers then had the bases loaded with none out, but they were unable to take the lead. It was still 4-4 in the bottom of the ninth inning with 2 runners on and 1 out, with Outman coming up to the plate. At that point, I really wasn't giving too much thought that he was a home run shy of the cycle, mostly because there was an important game to be won. He was 4 for 4 at that point, and I was just hoping for a hit of any kind to win the game. The ball he hit was absolutely smoked and was more of a line drive. It was out to right field, and the right field wall at the ballpark here is close to 30 feet high. I knew it was going to be a hit either way, but it ended up clearing the wall for the walk-off homer. It's not a perfect call, as I initially stumble at first, but I think I recovered quickly. The thought of the cycle was definitely in my head, because I am able to point it out somewhat soon. For perspective, there have only been 6 instances in MLB history where a player completed a cycle with a walk-off home run, per Baseball Reference. It was the team's first cycle since 2011, and the first time in my career a player for the team I was broadcasting for had done it. All in all, it was an important game in terms of the division race. It was on a military appreciation night and a fireworks night, and there was a great crowd on hand. Over the next few days, I received a lot of unsolicited compliments about the call. It's not why we do this, but it is nice when it happens. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it was an incredible moment. And for a quick postscript, Outman actually hit for the cycle again just 3 games later. That time it was completed with a single against a position player pitching, so the magnitude wasn't quite the same. 3-1 to Outman. Kinsler delivers home. Swing and it bangs one! Deep right field! This ball is gone! It's a cycle for James Outman to win the game! An absolute rocket for Outman to complete the cycle and give the Dodgers a 7-4 win.
Hello, the Show Before the Show podcast. First-time caller, long-time listener here. My name is Emma Tiedemann, and I'm the voice of the Portland Sea Dogs, the AA affiliate of the Boston Red Sox. Previously, I have worked with the St. Paul Saints, back in their Indy Ball days, and the Lexington Legends, the previous Single-A affiliate of the Kansas City Royals. When Sam asked me to send over my favorite call of my career so far, really only one came to mind. It took place on Friday, September 13th, 2019, when the Legends were hosting the Hickory Crawdads, the single-A affiliate of the Texas Rangers, in the South Atlantic League Championship. Now let me give you some context for this call. The Legends had won the South Atlantic League Championship the year before in Lakewood, New Jersey. And don't get me wrong, a championship is amazing wherever you win it, but I was really hoping to be able to celebrate with our fans and staff who had supported the team all year at home in Lexington at Whitaker Bank Ballpark. 30 minutes before first pitch, Hickory's starter was scratched. Even with that, we had a pitcher's duel. Zach Hockey for Lexington went 6 no-hit innings, but the Legends eventually scored in the 6th inning. It was an RBI single by current Kansas City Royal Nate Eaton to drive home Jason Guzman. Then in the 7th inning, Hickory answered with a Pedro Gonzalez solo homer off of Lexington's reliever Daniel James. So then the game remained tied at 1 until the 13th inning. And talk about a pitcher's duel, Brandon Markland for Lexington came in and fired 4 no-hit innings out of the bullpen. Now at this point, I was doing all of the Legends social media at the time and writing the post-game recap as the game progressed, and I believe that we were the only game still underway because we were gaining a lot of traction on Twitter with people noticing how long this game was going. So in the bottom of the 13th inning, Erik Cole drew a leadoff walk. Reed Rollman then came to the plate with 2 outs. In his previous at-bat in the 11th inning, he popped up a bunt. But this at-bat was different. So on Friday the 13th, in the bottom of the 13th inning, Reed Rollman delivered a walk-off 2-run home run to secure Lexington's 2nd consecutive South Atlantic League championship with the final score of 1-3 if you wanted to make it a 13 thing. The official time of game, by the way, was 3 hours and 42 minutes. In those types of situations, you never know what's going to happen. I basically made that call on one breath of air. As Rollman rounds third base, I'm nearly completely out of air, and I'm contracting my diaphragm to get every ounce of breath out so I can complete the call. Now, I've listened to this call a lot, and I definitely would change a few things. First off, that was not a pop-up. I have really focused on how I describe fly balls to the outfield ever since. Second, I have no idea why I chose to use the word dinger. I don't think I have ever used it since, but I cannot tell you why I chose that moment to deviate from literally any other word to describe home runs. Okay, now Sam has asked if anything has stuck out since. There are 3 pretty big things. 1, that was the last play and call for the Legends as an affiliate in minor league baseball. They are now in the Atlantic League. That was my last call ever for the Lexington Legends. I was hired by Portland during the following offseason. And that was the last play I would broadcast for 598 days due to the canceled 2020 season, then the delayed start of the 2021 season. I remind myself especially of that last point and have never taken a broadcast for granted since. Anywho, that's a very long-winded way to introduce a 52-second clip, but here it is in all its glory. Thompson looking in, looks over to first as he now sets at the chest. 1-0. Popped up high and deep, right field, way back, gone! Lexington walks it off with the dinger by Reed Rollman, and our crowned South Atlantic League champions for the 2nd time. Rollman mobbed at the plate. Friday the 13th, you get right this stuff.
Hey everybody, this is Erik Bremer, broadcaster for the AA Pensacola Blue Wahoos. I'm in my 2nd season in Pensacola and 6th in the minors after previous stops with the Biloxi Shuckers, Colorado Springs Sky Sox, Potomac Nationals, and Fredericksburg Nationals. I've also broadcast games for the Cape Cod Baseball League and Australian Baseball League. I've had my share of memorable moments behind the mic, a no-hitter, a long-awaited win after an 0-15 start to Fredericksburg's inaugural season, and last year a walk-off win with 4 straight hit-by pitches all come to mind. But my favorite call comes from last September, as the Blue Wahoos won the Southern League Championship by winning 4 must-win games in the playoffs. I got more excited earlier in the week on a game-ending catch in the division series, and earlier in the championship game on a go-ahead grand slam from Kobe Fletcher Vance. but the slow build of what turned into a blowout 11-4 win in Game 3 of the championship series in Tennessee allowed me to really reflect on how I wanted to describe Pensacola's improbable championship.
Reynolds takes the sign. The righty sets. 3-2 on the way. Maldonado swings and a comebacker. Gloved by Reynolds. He will flip to first, and the Pensacola Blue Wahoos have won the Southern League Championship. With their backs against the wall, they won twice in the division series and twice more on the road in the championship series. And on a cool September night in Tennessee, they celebrate on the field as the Southern League champions of 2022. 11-4 your final. The Blue Wahoos came into Tennessee. They beat the Smokies twice. And tonight it was the offense that led the way as they end the 2022 season spraying champagne.
Hey, this is John Nolan from the Fort Wayne Tin Caps, the High A affiliate of the Padres in the Midwest League. First off, as a big fan of this podcast, really appreciate the chance to make a little appearance. And with so many amazingly talented broadcasters all around minor league baseball, it's an honor to be included here, and thanks to you for listening. I'm originally from New Jersey and grew up on Mets broadcasts. Listening to and watching Gary Cohen and Howie Rose certainly played a part in inspiring me to pursue this career path. So I went to Syracuse University, and while in college, I interned for the AAA team there. At the time, their broadcasters were Jason Benetti and Kevin Brown, who you probably know now call games on TV today for the White Sox and Orioles respectively, not to mention their work for Fox Sports and ESPN. So not a bad booth to learn in. Another former Syracuse broadcaster, Mike Cousins, who these days we can sometimes hear calling MLB games on ESPN radio, was the voice of the Tin Caps before me. I worked as his assistant here in Northeast Indiana for a couple years before taking over the reins of lead broadcaster late in the 2014 season. At the time, the Tin Caps, then a single-A team, had a rookie at shortstop named Trey Turner. Well, as fun as it was to watch Trey hit .369 with a .976 OPS in 46 games late that summer, somehow, a few years later in 2017, he was topped. Despite being just 18 years old, Fernando Tatis Jr. set Fort Wayne's single-season franchise record for home runs, and he did that in less than a full year because eventually he was promoted up to AA San Antonio. Anyway, of the 21 homers Tatis hit as a Tin Cap, one stood apart as an inside-the-park home run. For me, Tatis is the most exciting player in baseball. And a speedy runner legging out an inside-the-parker, that's as exciting as any play in baseball. So I wouldn't necessarily say this was my best call ever, but Tatis is the best minor leaguer I've ever seen in person, and this call was as memorable as any I've had. To set the scene, this was July 2nd, an 85-degree day on the road in Dayton, Ohio, against the Reds affiliate, the Dragons. The previous batter, Buddy Reed, had just hit a homer himself.
The pitch. Tatis swings, and he cranks one deep to center field. Taylor Trammell back at the wall. He reaches, and it's off of his glove and off of the fence, hitting off the 402 marker. Tatis speeds to third. He's being sent home by Contreras. The cutoff man throw, not in time. 4-3 Fort Wayne. That's an inside-the-park home run. Tatis chest bumps Reynaldo Elaraza. It's Reed who high-fives Tatis. And the Tin Caps have their first inside-the-park home run of 2017. They have the lead. And Luis Bolivar, the Dragons manager, is out to the mound to make a pitching change. Thunder and lightning on this sunny Sunday afternoon.
For some of the quote-unquote bigger calls I've had in my career, like when Tatis did later break Fort Wayne's home run record, or a division clincher, or a no-hitter final out, or even situations like a walk-off, I have taken a moment to think about what I want to say in advance. This, though, was a case of a day game after a night game, in the middle of the season, middle of a game, middle of an inning, and you have no idea what's about to happen and just have to react. And in the situation of being on the road with hardly any fans vocally supporting your team, you have to bring the energy too. Listening back to it, the fact that the center fielder who almost made a spectacular catch was Taylor Trammell, a top prospect himself back then, who shortly after this appeared on this pod and has since made the big leagues as well. That adds to the fun. I had the chance to catch up with Tatis a bit at spring training this year, and I asked him what his top memories were from his time in Fort Wayne, now more than 5 years ago. And in addition to his record-breaking homer, he cited this inside the Parker. So if it's still cool for him to think back on, it is for me too. Of course, part of the joy of minor league baseball is seeing the future stars of the show before they're in the show. And as broadcasters, they make our shows better. So thanks to Fernando and all the other incredibly talented athletes out there. And thanks again to you for listening. This is John Nolan saying so long from Fort Wayne.
My name is Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. Since 2009, I've been the broadcaster for the Lansing Lugnuts. Here's the story behind this call that I chose. This was 2011, and the Lansing Lugnuts were in the playoffs, first round, Eastern Division semifinals, against the Dayton Dragons. And this Dayton Dragons team in 2011 was one of the great teams in the Midwest League's history. They were loaded, pitching-wise, their offense was outstanding, and it was all started by Billy Hamilton at the top of the order, stealing over 100 bases that year. But they were really electric, they were all around balanced, and they were the favorite to win the Midwest League Championship in 2011. Well, they hosted the first game, they won it in Dayton, and now the Lansing Lugnuts had Game 2, and if necessary, Game 3. It's a best 2 out of 3 series. And in Game 2, Dayton's expecting to roll right through. Rain had come down earlier in the game, and in fact, there had been a rain delay during the game. Well, Dayton brought a 2-1 lead to the bottom of the 9th inning, and at the point, I believe that Lansing only had 1 hit. Marcus Connect did single, so now Lansing has the tying run on. But the man on the mound was Drew Hayes, who had been an unhittable closer for Dayton all throughout the year. And he just struck out Casey Hobson. So now 2 outs, bottom of the 9th, and the Dragons are 1 out away from advancing to the next round and taking on Fort Wayne. What I appreciate so much about this call, when I was first approached and asked to contribute my greatest call, quote unquote, I went through a lot of calls just to say, how well did I do in calling it, right? How was I on this double play ball? How was I on this Tyler Soderstrom walk-off home run? Calls that I'm really proud of, and calls that are recent, because if I'm doing my job as a broadcaster, I should be getting better and better to the point where every subsequent game, hopefully, best case scenario, is the best that I am as a broadcaster. Well, what I really appreciate about this call is that this is the greatest moment that I've seen as the broadcaster of Lansing. This was, without question, the most exciting moment that the franchise has had in terms of walking off the great team in the Midwest League, going on to defeat them in Game 3, and then sweeping out Fort Wayne and advancing to the Midwest League Championship Series, the last time that the franchise has been to the Championship Series. And then in listening back to the call myself, I really appreciate all of the habits that I had not yet learned, good habits and also bad habits. I appreciate how genuine I am. And you'll hear me get shaken, that the moment is so big, it shakes me. And yet I'm still there painting the picture, and you can feel exactly what I'm feeling. It's so big that I get the score wrong at first, and I have to go back and correct myself. But this is, to my mind, my greatest call in Lansing, because it is the greatest moment that I have seen in Lansing. And that is all that you need. For a broadcaster, you give the great moment, you do your best to deliver exactly what it means for the fans, and then you sit back and enjoy the moment. And by goodness did I. Thank you very much for including me. And go nuts!
It's Matt Nuzzo's time. Nuzzo takes his time before he steps into the batter's box, reaches down for some dirt. Now he climbs in. The Lugnut season is down to its very last out. They are down 2-1. Bottom of the 9th, Marcus connects at second base. The first pitch to Nuzzo. Inside, ball one. Now Nuzzo today walked in the second inning, struck out swinging in the fifth. He lined out sharply to left field in the seventh inning. The Dragons can taste it. Ball one pitch from Hayes. Nuzzo fouls it back. Fastball got in on him. More baseballs are brought out to home plate umpire Martinez. What do you think the umpires are feeling right now? They understand the tension. Crowd gets behind Nuzzo. Hayes comes set. The right-hander delivers. Nuzzo takes a ball inside. 2-1. It has been mainly fastballs tonight from Hayes after mainly sliders last night. An open stance for Matt Nuzzo. No batting gloves. Waggling the bat back and forth. Now the pitch. Nuzzo swings and drives one to left field. Bo goes back toward the warning track. He goes. Can he make the catch? He jumps up. That ball is gone. A home run for Nuzzo. And the Lansing Lugnuts stun the Dayton Dragons. They win it 2-1 in the bottom of the ninth inning. A game-winning round tripper by Nuzzo to left field into the lawn area. They bounce in front of the first base side dugout, throwing each other back and forth. The Lugnuts still have life this year. Your final score at Cooley Law School Stadium. Game 2 belongs to Lansing, 3-2 over the Dayton Dragons.
Hi, my name is Tim Grubbs, voice of the Wichita Wind Surge, and have called all of the games over the first 3 years of the franchise's history. This is my 28th year in minor league baseball. I've broadcast around 3,800 games. Started my career in 1995 with the Hickory Crawdads, spent a few years in Winston-Salem with the Warthogs, 3 years in Knoxville with the Smokies, and then the bulk of my career, 17 of them in New Orleans, 14 with the New Orleans Zephyrs, the final 3 with the Baby Cakes. And then, of course, in 2019, the New Orleans franchise relocated to Wichita. Unfortunately, 2020 was our red shirt year. We didn't play baseball. 2021 came, and everybody, including myself, was re-energized, super excited about opening the new ballpark and having an exciting time at the ballpark. A few weeks into the season, the Wind Surge were in first place, had a good crowd at the ballpark, and the Wind Surge had a 7-0 lead against Springfield. All of a sudden, the Cardinals rally to come back, tie the ball game. Juan Yepes hits a home run to put Springfield ahead, pimps it, takes his good old time running around the bases. In the bottom of the ninth, Jose Miranda comes to the plate with a runner on, hits a home run to tie the ball game. And the very next pitch, Gilberto Celestino hits a walk-off home run. First walk-off home run in Wichita Wind Surge history. For me, it was my first walk-off home run for my team in 8 years. Brian Bogasevic hit a walk-off home run for the Zephyrs in 2014. With the ballpark in New Orleans, it was below sea level, huge ballpark. There were a number of reasons why we didn't have many walk-off home runs, but I had called my share of walk-off losses over the years. So this was a very exciting time, of course, for the franchise. Literally the next week, Arkansas comes rolling into town, and this is my favorite call of all time. I think so. Obviously it's only a few years old. I probably forget some of the ones from earlier, but we had some issues with the catering, and the players, of course, when you get 30 guys down there in the clubhouse, they're always going to complain with whatever food is served post-game. I get this text message from the guy that handles all the catering at Riverfront Stadium. Will this work for the guys tonight? We got a tie game. We're in the bottom of the 9th inning, and I look at the picture. It's a piece of flank steak. It's a baked potato. It's asparagus. It looks great. And before I'd even have a chance to even respond to Randy, here comes the pitch to Miranda, and he launches a bomb, a home run, 420 feet over the left center field wall. Windsurge win it. It's our third walk-off home run in a span of like 7 days. So the place is going nuts. I'm super excited. It was such a great time. During the walk-off home run, I coined the phrase, ring the dinner bell. Keep in mind that text message I got a few moments before with the post-game meal. Players loved it. Fans loved it. It's taken on a new life of itself. The ball club coined the phrase walk-off city. Shortly after that, we made T-shirts. It's got Jose Miranda's silhouette on the front of his swing, which was so perfect. And then it has one of my walk-off calls on the back. Certainly probably my favorite and certainly most memorable, and to this day, season ticket holders and fans still talk about it. Hope it's short enough for you. Hope you guys enjoyed it and appreciate the opportunity. You could play any of the 2 calls, but I think ring the dinner bell, without a doubt, is my favorite. Thanks, Ben. Talk to you guys soon. And the pitch to Celestino. Fly ball. Well hit. Right center field. Warning track. Whoa. Ball game. Go crazy. Throw the helmet. Celestino, take your time. Take the bracelet off, step on third, and trot home as the Wichita Windsurge are going to celebrate on a walk-off here at Riverfront Stadium. 10-9 winners. Gilberto Celestino and Jose Miranda have gone back-to-back in the 9th inning. Not only is it a blown save for Escobar, it's a capital L in bold. The Windsurge, on a night in which you had a 7-0 lead, you lost it. You were down to your final strike, and Miranda goes deep to left center, and now Celestino goes deep to right, just inside the Chick-fil-A foul pole, and that's how we end it here on a Saturday night. Well, this crowd of over 5,000 certainly has enjoyed what has been a riveting 9th inning, as Gilberto Celestino and the celebration will continue into the night as the Windsurge win it by the final on an unbelievable night, folks. 10-9. We'll be back. Post-game wrap-up. Windsurge win. 10-9 your final.
Hey, John Kocsis here with the Columbia Fireflies, and before we get started too much, I just want to thank Ben and Sam for having me on and for letting broadcasters talk about their favorite calls. I think this is such a cool idea for a podcast. So many of these get put on Twitter or Instagram or just throughout social media and get so much interaction. Now you guys kind of get to hear the story behind some of the bigger calls that have gone on. I've been here in Columbia since 2020, so right when the world ended is where I moved to Columbia, South Carolina in February 2020, and I've gotten the chance to call all of the Royals baseball for the Columbia Fireflies. Before that, I spent a year in Hagerstown back in 2019. In 2017 and 2018, I was with the West Virginia Power. So I've spent some time bouncing around the South Atlantic League and the Carolina League, and really happy to be here in Columbia, South Carolina with a great organization. Now, this call specifically is just, I think, such a great moment for the Columbia Fireflies because it really was the moment where we realized, hey, I think this pandemic thing's over. So it's our early Independence Day celebration. It was probably the first year in maybe 20, 30 years that baseball didn't break up July 3rd and July 4th. They did that for the pandemic rules. They didn't know how strict you had to be or anything. So the Fireflies had their July 4th game on June 26th. Columbia was playing against the Myrtle Beach Pelicans wearing some special Stars and Stripes uniforms. And it started off with Myrtle Beach coming out of the gates hot. Ed Howard hit a home run on the second pitch of the game. Ethan Hearn in the top of the first made it 2-0. But Columbia came roaring back. It was one of those games where you just felt like something was going to happen. Gage Hughes reached on a fielding error in the 7th, and that allowed Diego Hernandez to score. Juan Carlos Negrete mashed one of his team record 25 home runs to tie the game in the bottom of the 8th, which set the table for Darryl Collins. And before I talk more about the call, I want to talk about a moment that I had with one of my bosses, Ashley DiCarlo, before the season even began. I want to know kind of what some exciting things to call were, and I talked about walk-off home runs, I talked about cycles, and a bunch of things I'd never really had an opportunity to call a lot of, right? No cycles for me, and only a couple of walk-off home runs to that point, but she had mentioned that the Fireflies did not have a walk-off home run in team history during that, and I think everyone kind of jokes like, hey, yeah, it would be great to have a walk-off home run, but what about a grand slam, right? So Darryl Collins comes to the plate, nobody out, bottom of the 10th inning, and the bases are loaded. And there's a mound visit right before he comes to the plate, which gave me some great time to talk a little bit more about who he was as a prospect, a kid out of the Netherlands, and you can listen to it more, but he was one of the top prospects for the Royals back in 2021, so a special kid to come up to the plate at that time. And, I mean, he just cranked the ball. You knew off the bat. You hear the crack of the bat, and you knew that ball was leaving the park for Columbia's first ever walk-off home run. So you got to see some history. You got to see the revitalization of the sport following the pandemic, and it couldn't have happened to a more special player, a guy who's still in the Royals system. So that's why that's my favorite call. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I enjoyed calling it.
So the lefty Collins steps in. This is the situation every little kid dreams of. Extra innings. Bases loaded, a tie ball game. 19-year-old out of the Netherlands getting to live a dream professionally in his second professional season. Right throws home, and that's lifted to right field. It's a walk-off grand slam from Darryl Collins. That's the ball game. Columbia wins it. 3 Gatorade coolers on the field. They're waiting for the lefty to come around. The first walk-off home run in Columbia Fireflies history. He slams the helmet around third, and there it is. The Fireflies win it. Holy cow! Darryl Collins with his 3rd home run of the season.
What's up, everyone? Tyler Zickel from the Vancouver Canadians joining you on the show before the show, sharing my favorite call. Last night, Wednesday, June 14th, here at Rogers Field at Nat Bailey Stadium, a guy that Ben got to know very well when he made his visit to Vancouver a couple of weeks ago. It's the pride of Clarksville, Tennessee, Garrett Spain. Coming to the dish, 2 outs, runner at first, bottom of the 9th, the C's trailing the Hillsboro Hops 4-3. Big game regardless, but made even bigger because Spokane, who was tied with the Canadians when we woke up yesterday for first place in the Northwest League, had lost. So the C's had an opportunity to grab sole possession of first place, but an 8th-inning homer by the Hops had broken the 3-3 tie, and the C's were down to their final out when the former Austin Peay State governor came to the dish, and he went deep into the Vancouver night. My fellow broadcasters know sometimes you just have to let the moment carry you away. That happened for me last night, and here it is, my favorite call on the show before the show.
And now Garrett Spain. We know what he's capable of. 0-1. In the air, right field. Back goes Julio Carrion. He looks up and it's gone! The summer of Spain has continued tonight. A 2-run walk-off homer, and the C's win 5-4. Norman Spain in Clarksville, Tennessee. Your boy just hit his 7th homer of the year. A walk-off, 2-out, 2-run homer. 97 miles per hour off the bat. 385 feet. It's Garrett Spain's world, folks. We are just living in it.
Hello, this is Tim Hagerty, the El Paso Chihuahuas broadcaster, the Padres AAA team. First, I got to be on the show before the show to talk about my book, and now I get to come back to talk about my favorite call. Well, my favorite game and call took place on August 9th, 2019. El Paso scored 10 runs in the bottom of the ninth inning and won the game on a walk-off grand slam by Esteban Quiroz. 2019 was the year that El Paso set the modern-era Pacific Coast League record for team home runs in a season. They hit 258 homers in 140 games. And this comeback-clinching grand slam was also the record-breaking home run. The real reason this is my favorite call is because of an email I got after the game. This game came 6 days after El Paso's worst day. There was a mass shooting in El Paso on August 3rd, 2019, and the whole city was devastated. This fan's email let me know that he listened to the developing comeback and its conclusion. I think we can all picture a live sports broadcast that immersed us. The fan's email told me that listening to the end of this game made him temporarily forget about August 3rd. I'll always remember that email. I'll always remember this grand slam. It proves that these games are important. These broadcasts are important. Shows like this one are important. So that's why this call is my favorite. In the bottom of the ninth inning, McCurry's pitch. Swung on, fly ball, deep in right. It's up. It is gone! A record-breaking home run is a game-ending grand slam! The El Paso Chihuahuas score 10 runs in the bottom of the ninth inning and win 15-12. Most home runs in PCL modern era history. A pinch hit grand slam by Esteban Quiroz, ending the most stunning ninth inning the Chihuahuas have ever had.
All right, everybody, and now you're stuck with me. Hi, my name is Tyler Maun. I'm one of your friendly neighborhood co-hosts of the Show Before the Show podcast. I really just wanted to thank Ben and Sam for including me in the suggestions of people that we should have on this show, along with actual talented minor league baseball broadcasters. It's very strange for me to think this. I have not been a minor league radio broadcaster for 11 years now. I started with 3 seasons in the Carolina League, 1 season in the Eastern League. Since then, my coverage of the minors has been primarily on the writing side and obviously through the podcast, but crazy for me to think that it's been that long. So in thinking of calls for this episode, I didn't want to go with something from the World Baseball Classic that I did in March. I've obviously beaten that into the ground. I wanted to go back to my minor league days. So I fired up the old external hard drive and I came across some calls that I do fondly remember and pulled one specifically from the 2011 season, trying to put yourself back in the mindset of the 2011 campaign. We probably got people who are listening to this who are in their early 20s that are like, I was in 5th grade, and that's so nice for you. 2011, I was in the Carolina League, lead radio voice of the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. That season was our first season as a Texas Rangers affiliate. Had been an Atlanta affiliate for all of franchise history up until that point. And my first couple of seasons in Myrtle on field were rough. We had some really great prospect talent come through, Jason Hayward and Freddie Freeman and Julio Teheran and a lot of guys who were, Craig Kimbrell was on those teams. We had some studs. Didn't win a lot. First season with the Rangers, things really turned on the field, and it was a really lovable group of guys. We had a lot of top prospects on that team as well, but just likable guys, very likable guys, from our manager, Jason Wood, all the way down through the roster. You've seen a lot of big league contributors, guys who have gone up and made impacts at the major league level. But what really stood out to me about that team was just the energy and the quality of human being that was on that roster. We had a guy, one of our outfielders. There was a time when we had 3 outfielders who were all named Jared, which was weird. But Jared Bolden was a lovable dude, a guy who was so much fun to be around, was a great presence in the clubhouse, and delivered in a big moment for that Pelicans team in the second half. This is early to mid-August of that 2011 season. The previous couple of years, the Pelicans have been just owned by the Salem Red Sox, just dominated. And in 2011, Rangers prospects came in, and that narrative really started to flip. Pelicans had already won the first half title by this point, but were kind of delivering the narrative, I think that things were going to be different heading toward postseason play in 2011 than they had for the previous several years. And Jared Bolden was one of the guys to put up a big moment in this call that I remember from a late summer night in 2011 in the Carolina League.
And now here comes Jared Bolden with a game-winning run 2 stations away at second base. Bolden, a 3-hit day today. First pitch to him from Batista. Swinging a drive. Deep out to right field. Back going Brents to the warning track. To the wall. It's gone! Jared Bolden, a walk-off homer in the 13th. The Pelicans have walked off for the second straight night over Salem. 8-6. First walk-off jack of the year. Birds take the sweep.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in Radioland must identify the legitimate historical book club hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One once offered a real good time at the yard. To enjoy the others, you had to use your imagination. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball teams did at one time exist. A. The Hutchinson Larks. B. The Norman Gags. C. The Wigwam Jokers. You're dead serious about your baseball if you picked A. The Hutchinson Larks, who were out for a few laughs in the Western Association of the mid-1930s. The Western Association dated in some version or another back to the 19th century, but our Larks were founding members of the iteration reborn in 1934 after the Western Association of 1920 to 1932 went south and out in 33. Regular Ghosts of the Miners listeners may recall the Hutchinson Wheat Shockers of that former circuit, but that was then and this is now, or was now, or was closer to now. Let's reorient ourselves. We left off in that Great Depression year of 1934 when the Western Association returns, ushering in along with it on a prayer and a wing the Hutchinson Larks. Before the Larks' inaugural campaign took flight in May, the local newspaper assured fans that the area just back of the grandstand would be oiled down before the start of play, preventing the Hutchinson Seating Bowl from turning into another Dust Bowl. Over their first 2 seasons, the Larks tried for some fun under manager Boyce Bob Morrow, getting fine play from Sebastian
Well, huge thanks to not only Josh Jackson, who makes his triumphant return to the show before the show this week. A big thanks to our pal, as always, but of course to all of the voices who joined us this week for our look at some of the broadcasters' best memories in minor league baseball. And with all of that in the rearview mirror, we are actually recording this on Wednesday because I have a parade to go to tomorrow on Thursday. So by the time you're hearing this on Friday, I will have already been, elated in my waste of a Thursday morning in downtown Denver. So we're going to give you some recommendations for some matchups in minor league baseball, as well as the top promo of the week, the things that we are most excited for this week. Let's kick it off with our good pal, Benjamin Hill. Ben, promo wise, what is the most electrifying thing in the minors this week that you're excited for?
Well, how about this? Thursday, June 15th, Friday, June 16th, Saturday, June 17th, the Binghamton Ponies are playing as the Southern Tea Shortcakes, as in strawberry shortcakes, and that's commemorating or a tribute to a annual strawberry festival that happens, pretty near Binghamton. I think it's the Oswego Strawberry Festival. So they're honoring the region's strawberry heritage, playing as the Southern Tier Shortcakes, and they're a Mets affiliate. So when you're honoring strawberries, who do you think you might get to come to the ballpark that weekend? You guessed it, Lenny Dykstra. No, Darryl Strawberry.
For a second, I was like, wait, really? What a weird connection.
Darryl Strawberry will be, they're giving away a Darryl Strawberry bobblehead on Friday. And then on Saturday, Darryl Strawberry will be at the ballpark. And I'm sure there'll be enterprising fans who get that bobblehead on Friday, bring it back to the ballpark on Saturday, and get it signed by Darryl Strawberry. But there you go. A Mets affiliate having Darryl Strawberry at the stadium. At the same time, they are honoring their region's strawberry culture and playing as the Southern Tier Shortcakes.
I really thought when you were saying that it was going to be a tribute to, you remember the cartoon, like greeting card character, Strawberry Shortcake?
I do.
Yeah,
I remember.
That's what I thought. I thought you were going to be like, Binghamton artist created Strawberry Shortcake in the late 1970s. Okay, so I actually like that a lot better, that it's just about the actual strawberry growing world.
Yeah, but we'll have to look into it now because that sounds like a very minor league thing to.
It totally does.
To honor something like that. Strawberry Shortcake. I've not thought of that for quite some time, but I remember it being popular when I was a kid, for sure.
All right, Sam, what are you watching on MILB.TV?
Yeah, well, Ben is going to the South. So there are two teams that are playing that he will be at on his trip. This is Biloxi against Montgomery. For the rest of the week, those games will be in Montgomery. So Ben, again, remind folks when you'll be there.
I'll be there on Friday, June.
On Friday. So tune in on Friday. You might see Ben pop up somewhere on the MILB.TV broadcast.
Maybe as a tooth, maybe not.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Dressed as
if he remembers to pack his costume.
He just swiped that costume from Inland Empire 11 years ago.
Yeah, and bring it every
break it out.
Yeah.
Well, I highlight Biloxi and Montgomery, not just for Ben, but also because there will be a pair of teens playing in that series, currently playing in that series, between number 2 overall prospect Jackson Churio and number 56 overall prospect Junior Caminero, both only 19 years old. Jackson Churio actually just had a 4-hit game on Tuesday, so he's heating up there in the Southern League after taking a little bit to kind of get used to that level. It makes sense. High A to double A is difficult. Saw it a little bit last year, but now he's getting to the point where he's a league average bat as the guy who was the youngest player in that league to start out the season. Junior Caminero has a major big arrow pointed up next to his name. The guy can hit for power. He can hit for average. Where they're going to place him on the infield for the Rays is an interesting thought, but he's another one of their developmental success stories. And one other top 100 prospect to throw out is number 97, Jefferson Caro, who he is one of the best defensive, if not the best defensive prospects in the minor leagues, at least from the catching position. But he's also hitting well so far for Biloxi. He's got a little bit of pop. So if he's marrying that bat with the glove, he could be a really special prospect for Milwaukee as well. So a lot to watch in that Biloxi Montgomery series. Tyler, what are you watching?
So In another mention of young prospects across minor league baseball, you think about the Cincinnati Reds, like, they got Ellie De La Cruz up there. They have finally cashed in on some infield talent. That's not all the Reds have. And at High A Dayton, Edwin Arroyo, who is the number 32 prospect in baseball, came over to the Red system from Seattle in last year's trade that sent Luis Castillo to the M's at the trade deadline. Edwin Arroyo has been getting himself figured out at that high A level. He and Dayton will be taking on Fort Wayne, the Padres affiliate, and that system still has a lot of talent, including the number 14 overall prospect in baseball and the Padres' first-round draft selection from 2021, Jackson Merrill. So you got a couple of guys who are getting themselves sorted at the high A level. And that's one of the most entertaining things about this stretch of a minor league baseball season is when, especially young guys, if they've scuffled at the beginning of a year, when they really start getting it all put together, May, June, July, those are exciting developmental tracks to watch. So you can tune in to Dayton and Fort Wayne this week at milb.tv. And that'll do it for this week's episode of the show before the show. Huge thanks to everybody who joined us, all the broadcasters who shared their calls with us and some of their favorite memories. And, of course, to our good pal Josh Jackson, his triumphant return to Ghosts of the Miners after a 2-week layoff. For Benjamin Hill and Sam Dykstra, my name is Tyler Maun. We'll catch you all next week.